Hey everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well on this fine Friday afternoon as we get ready for day 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft. I want to go ahead and break down what I think the 49ers will be doing tonight. But before we get to night number 2, let's take a look back at night number 1 and how it pertains to the 49ers. Everybody was locked in at pick number 10 when it came time for the Jets to find out if Deebo Samuel would be traded or if he'd stay a member of the 49ers. And as we all know by now, Deebo Samuel did not get traded. Before I get too far along the line, though, I do want to take a second and say, hey, E. Kim, good to have you on board with me. The Deebo Samuel didn't get traded last night, as some people felt might occur. And some people didn't. It was back and forth. I was of the mindset that Deebo Samuel is going to be a member of the 49ers in 2022. And at this point, it looks like that's going to be the case. Either way, the interesting piece of that is that we learned a little bit today about what the offer was for Deebo Samuel. We know that the New York Jets offered to pick pick number 10 for Deebo, and let's get into it a little bit. I think the thing is that people look at that offering from the Jets. Matt Barrows of the Athletic is reporting that the Jets offered the 49ers number 10 overall, plus their pick in the 5th round, which would have been at the top of the 5th round, in exchange for Samuel and the 49ers pick at number 61. If you just go based off of the point value chart, the 49ers would have netted a point number of 1,039.4. You look at the trade that did go down, A.J. Brown getting sent from Tennessee out to Philadelphia. Philadelphia sent Tennessee picks number 18 and 101. If you look at that, Philadelphia gave up 995 points in exchange for their receiver. So the Jets' offer on the point value chart is actually higher than what we saw A.J. Brown go for. Makes sense. I think Deebo Samuel is a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. He's a better overall player than A.J. Brown. He hasn't been healthy for 2 seasons back to back. Unfortunately, he had the issues in 2020 during the COVID season. But last year he was on pace for over 1,700 yards. Probably would have been closer to 18 if he played all 17 games and played wide receiver the whole way through. So that didn't happen. And then when you look at the money involved, you had A.J. Brown sign a new 4-year deal, $100 million with $57 million guaranteed. We haven't seen the full breakdown of what that looks like yet, but I think that would give you some idea of what the 49ers are going to be looking to pony up for Deebo Samuel. Like I just said, I think that Deebo Samuel is a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. And I think that Deebo Samuel feels that he's a better wide receiver than A.J. Brown. I don't think it's going to be exactly those numbers. I think Deebo Samuel's probably still looking at something north of $60 million on the guarantee, probably a little bit closer to 104, 108 along those lines on if it was a 4-year deal. To get up there to 26, 27 million. I really feel like Deebo Samuel believes he's the 4th or 5th best wide receiver in the league, and he should be compensated as such. And those are the numbers that it would take to get there. So we'll see where this one goes. The 49ers to this point have held on to the player. I'm of the mind that he will still be with the 49ers, that they're going to have to figure a way out of this. If they don't, if the 49ers are not able to make this work with Deebo Samuel and come to a financial, decision with him and get him locked in. If there's a holdout that lasts into the season where Deebo Samuel isn't a member of the 49ers for the first few weeks of the year, because, there is a piece here where Deebo Samuel, in order to get his year of credit, needs to be there for so many weeks. So he can skip some time and then show up and still get credited for the year. So it'll be something to watch as this plays out. But if the 49ers aren't able to get this done with Deebo Samuel, then this is a big mistake on their part. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. I'm not going there. I'm not saying that this was a mistake at this point. The 49ers still have plenty of time to get this done before training camp. And I think it's something that can get done, but they're going to have to sharpen their pencils. I think they're going to have to get a little bit north of $25 million per year, and probably a little bit north of that, definitely higher than that $57 million guarantee that we just saw from A.J. Brown. I think it's going to have to be closer to 60, 65. So we'll see where the direction of this goes with Deebo Samuel. But if they aren't able to get this done and they don't draft a wide receiver in this draft that can help them immediately, this could be a situation where you have a pretty bad result for the 49ers. We've seen them already get bitten by a situation like this with Jimmy Garoppolo so far. So again, the Garoppolo thing that I just mentioned, the Deebo Samuel deal, they all still have a long ways before they're done and we can play out and we can really rip the 49ers. Right now, you can say there's some questions about the direction that they've taken and if it's going to work out or not. That's, I think, a fair statement. I don't think you're overstepping saying that this might not work out in the 49ers' favor if they're not able to get the player signed. So we'll see how that works out. As far as we go into tonight, before we look at that, I want to take a look really quick at the questions over here. Ekim says either pay Deebo or move him if he's not willing to play again for the 49ers. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we'll see what happens. Those are their two options, right? They're either going to pay him or they're going to have to move him. I think they're going to pay him in the end. We'll just see how that all works out. That Niner guy says, "What's up, Jack? Did you see Trey's tweet? Love it. Think Deebo is coming back." Yeah, I've seen a couple of tweets out of Trey Lance in the last couple of days. There was the one yesterday heading back to Tony, where he told Tony to pipe down, and then there was the one today with OBJ that he got involved with. So definitely seen a little bit more of the Twitter presence of Trey Lance in the last couple of days. So that's always interesting. I'll never forget when Jerry Rice was in the middle of his contract dispute with the 49ers in 1992. The way that Steve Young got on Twitter and made sure to back up everybody and get everybody off of Jerry Rice's back. That was such a leadership quality there for Steve Young. Joking, obviously, but shows you how much things have changed over the last 30 years now, 30 plus years of covering sports. That so much news is broken by players through Twitter. You have reporters having to sit there and scour Instagram and Twitter and all these other things to get little bits and pieces of information that they can send out to the masses. It's quite interesting as you go through this. As far as tonight, here's how I see this. There's a couple of different ways the 49ers can play here. I think there's really three. The 49ers can stay where they are, they can trade up, or they can trade back. And the more that you look at it, the more that I looked at it throughout from last night after the first round concluded until just a little bit earlier today. For me, I think the best move for the 49ers is either to stay put or trade back. If they trade up, let's start off with the trade up first. I'm not going to go with the one that I feel is best, but let's just say the 49ers decide that they want to trade up. And the reason that the 49ers would trade up is if you look at the guys that they've had in during their visits, there's one name that's on that list that matches up with the need that they have and matches up with a guy who's not going to make it to 61 on their list. And that's safety Jaquan Brisker from Penn State. A guy that can play, down in the box, primarily, a box safety, but also can play up top, can play some in the slot. He's got that versatility that the 49ers look for. The 49ers were heavily involved in scouting Brisker. They were at his pro day. In addition to being at the pro day for Penn State, they had Brisker in for one of their top 30 visits. So there's definitely some interest from the 49ers for Brisker. If the 49ers want to trade up, I think that they can get Brisker somewhere in the range of about 45 to 50, right in that ballpark. And the 49ers can get there. But in order to do it, they're going to have to give up a pick. But just based on some of the scenarios that I've seen, the 49ers can trade pick number 61 and either pick 105 or 93 to get up there. It just depends on the positioning. But I think Brisker is going to be there. I think expecting Brisker to be, I would expect Brisker to still be on the board around 48. Might in the pick for Brisker, the sweet spot there would be 49, trading up with the New Orleans Saints. And that would require the 49ers to give up pick 61 and pick number 105 to get there. And so they take Jaquan Brisker at 49. Now you're left with only one more pick in day two. 49ers really don't have, unless they're going to trade a player, they don't really have the ammunition from a trade perspective to jump back up into the third round with any of their other spots, unless they're trading a player like a Dre Greenlaw or maybe Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded from the 49ers to the Houston Texans and they get a third round pick there. There's not a whole lot of other ways that they can jump back into the third round today if they make the move up to get Brisker. So if they do make that move up to get Brisker, I think they kind of pigeonhole themselves a little bit, because then that would force them, especially if they use 105. Doesn't really matter really, but if they use 105, Luke Fortner will be there for them, I believe, at 93, and that gives them the center of the future that they need. A center that can play now, a guy that can also play either guard position. During his time at Kentucky, he played all three: center, left guard, right guard. The other piece around Fortner is that when he was at Kentucky, he knows the 49ers system. He understands their scheme, having played under Liam Cohn, who is the offensive coordinator now for the Los Angeles Rams, but had been the offensive coordinator at University of Kentucky the last few years, and went there from the Rams to Kentucky. So if the 49ers trade up, they limit themselves a little bit. They get Brisker and Fortner, two solid players, definitely a solid player at safety. Fortner, I think, is going to be a solid offensive lineman in the NFL. So a couple of picks if they do the trade up route. So again, trade up, you're giving up 61 and 105 for 49, and in exchange you're going to use that 49th pick on Brisker, and then at 93 you take the big center, interior offensive lineman Luke Fortner from Kentucky at 93. Let's see what else we have. Just looking at here. Matt says the first pick's going to be a center. I don't think so. I don't think there's a need to go center that early. At 61, if they stay at 61, I don't foresee them taking a center at that position. We'll see. It could be. I don't see it that way, but it could be. The other option is if they go ahead and stay put. If they stand pat and they don't move, I like this route, because now with this one, it opens up four different possibilities for them. They can get us. I think the 49ers, with what they've looked at and the players that they've brought in and they've talked to, they've shown interest in, the 49ers have three of them on the board right now, based off of what we know from their top 30 visits, that all kind of fit into the draft slots that the 49ers have tonight. Starting with Nick Cross at 61, giving them that back end safety that I think they're looking for. They're gonna, Cross is a little bit more of a deep safety instead of a box safety, but he has that ability to play both. Drafting Cross kind of tells me that there's going to be some movement with Jimmy Ward. Either Jimmy Ward's going to be moving on from the 49ers after this year, or they're going to look to use Jimmy Ward as more of a box safety this year, kind of playing more of the strong safety role that we saw last year for Jaquiski Tart. So at 61 would be Nick Cross from Maryland. And then at 93, this is where it gets interesting. At 93, the 49ers have, just based on the mocks that I've been playing around with, like I said, I've been doing it since day one ended last night around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Marcus Jones continues to show up for the 49ers at 93. If there's no trade, if the 49ers don't trade up or trade around, Marcus Jones continues to fall draft after draft after draft to 93. And the 49ers could pick him up. And that's another position of need, that slot corner guy. Jones was a little bit on the smaller side, but at the same time, he plays bigger than he is. He would be a really nice fit for the 49ers in the slot, who need to figure that spot out. The 49ers have a lot of depth at that nickel spot, but they don't have like that one big player. The one interesting piece as I've thought about this with the 49ers, and why I think even if Jones is on the board there at 93, the pick might be Luke Fortner, is the 49ers I don't think the 49ers value the slot corner position quite as much as most fans do. Most of us who are covering the team do. If you look back at what the 49ers have done there, they brought in K'Wan Williams in 2017. When they brought in K'Wan Williams, their goal was to have him play in the slot. And K'Wan Williams was a guy who hadn't even played the year before, and they brought him in. He locked that position down for them for 5 years, for the better part. But I think really with the 49ers, they don't value that position, that slot position, quite as much as as a number of us fans do. So reporters, like I said, and so I think you're going to see it be Cross, and then either going to be Jones or Fortner at 93. I'd probably lean more towards a Luke Fortner at that spot, and then that brings you to 105. And remember, this is all with the 49ers not moving around at all. And at 105, it's probably going to be D'Angelo Malone, the edge rusher from Western Kentucky, the 49ers. And again, this is a player that the 49ers have visited with. They brought him in for one of their top 30 visits. They like players like Malone off of the edge, opposite of Nick Bosa. We saw that in 2019, right? They went out and they got D Ford, and then they drafted Bosa. And that speed, explosiveness coming off the edge, opposite out of that wine dine, is what they look for. That's why we saw the 49ers bring in Samson Ebukam last year. It was a guy that they felt could be that speed rusher off the edge opposite of Bosa. They also went and got Kimoko Ture from the Indianapolis Colts in free agency, another speed rusher coming off the edge. Malone kind of fits that and would be a guy who could be your third down speed rushing back coming off of or edge rusher if they were to get him at 105. The cool piece about that is, the one way that I could see that working out, I shouldn't say cool piece, but the one way I could see that working out for the 49ers is Samson Ebukam, although I thought he played well over the second half of the year, the 49ers obviously have made some additions to their defensive front. The Toure signing in particular is a guy who's very similar in size and stature to Samson Ebukam and has put up better numbers throughout his career. He's been more of an edge rusher throughout, whereas Ebukam bounced back and forth between linebacker and rusher. So his moves weren't quite as refined until he got throughout this season and really finally got to focus on one area. So again, and Malone, the reason I say Malone at 105 is because I don't think Fortner is going to get there. Like I said earlier, Liam Cohen, the new offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, comes from University of Kentucky, which is where Luke Fortner comes from. So he knows everything. If there's a guy that knows anybody about a player in this draft, it's Cohen knowing about Luke Fortner because, well, he's coached him and he's worked with him, and he knows what this guy can bring as either a center or a guard on either side. With the 49ers, I would see him more as a center. The Rams might see him as either a center or a guard, depending on their needs. So that's where I am at this point. We'll see as the night goes on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really quick before I keep going on, if you're watching and you're liking what you're seeing, please do me a favor, hit that like button. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, you just found your way over here today for the first time, hit that subscribe button as well. Would really appreciate it. Hopefully you saw me earlier. I did a hit with Larry Kruger over on his channel at noon. So hopefully you're able to check that out as well. Working on some things to maybe jump back on with him tomorrow after the draft is over with and do a recap. But the way that I see it, stay where you are. Nick Cross at 61, Marcus Jones at 93, D'Angelo Malone at 105. I think that's a solid group that you get today. The only thing is, like I said, Fortner is the one that I think you need to throw in there. And so as much as I like Marcus Jones, I think the 49ers would go with Luke Fortner over Jones there at 93. They need to get that center position solidified for the long term. What we heard on Monday from John Lynch regarding Alex Mack didn't sound all that positive as far as him returning, which means they need to get somebody that's going to be able to fill in that spot for a while. And Daniel Brunskill can do it in the short term. That's who they have on their roster right now. They can do it. It would be Brunskill, and they also have Jake Brendel as well. So they've got a couple of guys that can play center, but Brendel's never started in the NFL. Daniel Brunskill has. So we'll see the direction that they go there. Hey, Andrew, good to have you on. So I think I think that's the direction we're going to go. As far as I know Cam Jurgens is a name that a lot of folks really like, the center from Nebraska, and he could be there in round 2. I think that's where the Friars would have to get him, as either at 61, maybe a slight trade back. It would still be able to net them Jurgens. But if they go that direction, then I think they lose the safety piece. So it's going to be a fun one tonight. I think we're going to get a lot better understanding as tonight goes on with what the 49ers believe their roster looks like and who they feel, what they feel about this team moving forward. Because like I said, the safety position, Nick Cross is the one that I keep talking about there. I had mentioned Jaquan Brisker earlier today. I think those are your two safeties that you're looking for. The picking up of Cross, though, would tell me that Jimmy Ward isn't long for the 49ers beyond 2021, and that he might be shifting into a little bit different role next season. The Jones pick would be a nice one, but I, again, believe that's going to be Fortner, and then we have D'Angelo Malone at 105. So those are your four that my four, if I had to give you four names, it's going to be Cross, Jones, Fortner, and Malone. Those are the four to keep an eye on. We'll see where it goes. Like I said, I also think there's a way that the Friars might be able to trade back a little bit with and still get Cross and playing around with it. Like I said, there was a trade back that netted 108 as well, which falls into round 4. But if you trade back a little bit with Cross and then you get 105 and 108, maybe you trade back up and be able to leapfrog the Rams there to get ahead of 104 to get that center. So we'll see the direction that it goes. Tonight's going to be a lot of fun. Last night was fun as well. I don't know about you, but I didn't even watch TV. I had it on for a few minutes and I realized that Mike Silver was giving out all the picks ahead of time, but you had to be able to decipher his puzzles. And so I watched that, and that's why I screwed up. If you were following along last night on Twitter, you saw me throw out a tweet after round 1 ended with regards to Deebo Samuel, and saying that it wasn't over yet because the first round hadn't even ended yet, but the first round that just because Samuel was still was there, and everybody felt like he was going to go at 10. That it wasn't done yet because the Jets still had 34, 38, and 69. And almost as soon as I hit send on that tweet, the trade came down where they made a trade to jump back into the first round. The Jets did. And I'd also missed the trade package where it had been reported that Samuel was the Friars were offered a 10th for Deebo Samuel, 10th, and a pick swap was what it was called at that point. So you hadn't seen it, so apologize for that mistake there on Twitter. I do think that there's still a possibility that something interesting can happen with Deebo Samuel. You would have to, I think, in order for the Friars to move off of him at this point, right now, during the draft, you would have to see the 40. You'd have to see the 49ers getting a player back. So let's just say, for example, the 49ers really, really decide that they've got to move on from him. Maybe the Jets send the 49ers the wide receiver from last night, Garrett Wilson. Maybe they send him Garrett Wilson in exchange for 61 Deebo Samuel, and the 49ers decide they're going to give up, whatever. Maybe there's some change up that takes place and over the next day or two, and that's the direction that they go. Who knows? It'll be fun to watch. I'm not going to keep throwing out wild, crazy scenarios when it comes to Deebo Samuel. Here's what we know is that the 49ers kept him. The 49ers chose to keep Deebo Samuel over a trade that would have netted him a better point value chart number. We know that Samuel's going to, I think we can be pretty certain that Samuel's going to get a deal that's at least $25 million plus based on the numbers that we saw yesterday, or it's going to be pretty close to that because in a lot of ways, I think the receivers that he's involved with in terms of A.J. Brown, Hollywood Brown, and DK Metcalf. I think you're going to see all of them kind of doing the same thing here this offseason. So I think right now you're if you're Deebo Samuel, you're looking to see what the first of that group gets paid. You saw that last night. Now you kind of have another understanding, another baseline to base your expectation on. And we'll see where the direction of that takes. Like Andrew says over here, that's another one too. The 2 Baltimore picks for Deebo. Give me Kyle Hamilton, give me Tyler Linderbaum. I'll send you Deebo Samuel and my 2nd round pick. Heck, if I could get Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, I think you send Deebo Samuel your 2nd and 105 for those guys. That's we start talking about having to give up picks to get them. I mean, those are some Hamilton and Linderbaum are some stud players, I believe, that have a lot of potential, and they play positions that fit needs of the 49ers. Do I think that's likely to happen? Not really, but we'll see. See how it falls. Melvin asked me where I think the SMU wide receiver Danny Gray is going to go. Gray, on the mocks that I was playing around with, keeps showing up around that 93 area. If the 49ers were serious about taking a wide receiver, I think Gray's there more often than not at around that 93 spot for them. So, again, that's a speedy receiver. And I don't know if there is a need for a speed wide receiver for the 49ers. I understand what people are saying with this. I think the 49ers, with the way they're currently constructed at the wide receiver position, if Deebo Samuel's here, if you give me Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, and then kind of mix in those other 4 guys that they've signed this offseason and kind of give me the best of that group, I think that's a pretty solid wide receiver room. You might go ahead and pick a receiver on day 3. But it's not somebody that I'm using a day 2 pick, or I wouldn't expect it. But the 49ers have surprised us in the past. So we'll see the direction that they take tonight, because like 49ers breakdown says, speed kills. And I think they do. As far as Benjamin not filling that role, I mean, here's the thing, and this is, I guess, the reason why I don't feel like they need it is because I think you're going to see, with the change of a quarterback, you're going to see the ball going down the field more often. Brandon Ayuk last year was primarily running those deep routes, and the ball wasn't going to him because Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't or wouldn't throw the ball. So just take a step back and remind yourself of week 17 against Houston. And what did we see? Didn't see it in the first half. In the second half, we saw it, though. Play action, roll out, deep shot on a corner post to Brandon Ayuk deep down the middle of the field. Finally, the post corner gets thrown. If you watch the 49ers film last year and you watch my breakdowns that I did with Grant or on my own channel, that corner post was a route that was there over and over again. And for whatever reason, either it wasn't getting thrown or there'd be a breakdown in protection, whatever it was, but the ball just wouldn't go there. And finally, when you had Trey Lance in there, he takes the shot. It's not a completion, but it's a pass interference. It's a deep pass interference. One of the few times we saw that happen for the 49ers. And it was just all about somebody being willing to take the shot down the field and finally try to make that throw. We saw them come back to that in the fourth quarter. Same thing, except for this time he rolls out to his right, and it's Deebo Samuel running the corner post, and Lance drills it into him for a touchdown. You're going to see the ball get pushed down the field more often. And the 49ers, and I've said this a bunch, and you're probably going to get tired of hearing me say this over the course of the offseason, but for me, I think the 49ers offense with Trey Lance would be at its best if they just let Trey Lance run the offense that they've run for the last 5 years. And what I mean by that is, you look at the at the stuff happening on film, and there's guys running deep routes, not even deep like takeoffs up the sidelines, but just a little bit deeper route over the middle. They say 20, 25 yards down the middle of the field. It happened repeatedly in the NFC Championship game, and instead of taking that shot down the middle to the wide open guy, Garoppolo's checking it down. He's going to other places with the ball, and that was the biggest problem with the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Third play of the game, Jimmy Garoppolo has George Kittle running free down the middle of the field for a touchdown. The ball sails over his head. He never tried that kind of throw again, other than when it was called on the deep shot to Ayuk, but he never went down the middle of the field again. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how this plays out, but I really think you're going to see this offense take off with Trey Lance, with these guys that they have. That's why I think it's so important to bring Deebo Samuel back. I think Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings make a really good threesome. If there's a wide receiver that they just can't pass up, and Christian Watson's still there at 61 tonight, all bets are off. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be fun. Hope you guys are ready for a good Friday night. It's going to be a little bit longer. We get to see possibly 3 picks from the 49ers. So it'll be fun to see how this all plays out. So hope you all liked what you saw. If you can do me a favor, if you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button before you leave today. Also, do this for me. Get over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's where I write. That's where all of my information, all of my writing gets done over there. 49ers at the Press Democrat, at that blog, it has a great comment section below. The old days used to be, that place used to just be the Wild Wild West with debates back and forth. Some of the folks that were the mainstays over there have moved on. But if you can get yourself over there and take a look at it on a daily basis, just make it a favorite on your taskbar. Check it out on a daily basis just to see what new information is on there. I'd greatly appreciate it. Beyond that, I hope everybody has a great Friday. I will be back most likely tonight with another quick show to go over the picks that the 49ers did make, along with previewing tomorrow. And then we'll see how Saturday goes, but I do expect to be on as well tomorrow. So again, thank you all for joining on this Friday. Go out, have yourselves a good evening. Get yourself ready for this, for day 2 of the NFL draft. Thank you all. Have a great day and take care.